Hello and welcome to DefenceLine, our weekly show on defense, security and more. While there has been a mixed reaction to the union budget presented by the Indian Finance Minister P. Chidambaram, most of those associated with defense and security are disappointed with the defense allocation in the annual budget. They feel that this year's modest increase of 14% over revised estimates of the past year would not address the security needs of the country. Is there merit in what the defense analysts feel? This is what we discuss in DefenceLine with four security analysts: Colonel Dr. P.K. Vasudeva, Major General Mohabbat Singh Virk, Brigadier Pradeep Sharma and Professor S.K. Sharma. Gentlemen, welcome to the discussion. But before that, let us look at this report.
In its lowest spending on defence in over 3 decades, the Union Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has allocated Rs 2,03,672 crore for financial year 2013-14. The allocation is up by Rs 25,169 crore from last year's revised estimate of Rs 1,78,503 crore. Though this marks a hike of about 14% over last year's revised allocation, it is barely 1.79% of the gross domestic product. This is a record low for India in at least 3 decades, with the figure dropping considerably from 3.16% of the GDP in 1987. The budgetary allocation last year was 1.90% of the GDP. The budget estimate last year was Rs 1,93,407 crore, but it was slashed by Rs 14,904 crore later by the Finance Ministry owing to the strain on the economy. The allocation is about Rs 50,000 crore less than the Ministry's demand. Of the total expenditure of the Government of India, defence expenditure would account for 10%, which is 1% less than 2012-13. Under the breakup of the budget, Rs 44,500 crore have been allocated for pensions to be paid to retired defence personnel, and the DRDO has been allocated Rs 5,500 crore. Of the Rs 1,16,931 crore allocated for revenue expenditure, the Army has been allocated Rs 81,833 crore. The Navy has got Rs 12,194 crore, while the IAF received Rs 18,295 crore. Of the Rs 86,741 crore capital expenditure fund, the IAF has the largest share of over Rs 38,000 crore, followed by the Navy and the Army. The major portion of these funds would be used to procure aircrafts and aero engines for the services. The Defence Ministry is in a major modernization process with several acquisitions in the pipeline besides upgradation of infrastructure in the northeast along with China border.
We will be in discussion with four defense experts. Colonel Vasudev, will start with you. The Finance Minister has announced a 14% increase over previous year's revised budget estimates. Is this sufficient to address our security concerns?
Firstly, no. Actually, it is 4.53% of the budgeted estimate, which was 1,93 crore 407,000 crore.
That's right.
And this 4.5%, if you see the inflation and escalation cost, it comes to negative. It is a negative increase in the budget, and budget is 10% less than the previous ones. Earlier, it was 1.9% of the GDP. Now, it is 1.73% of the GDP. I think there can't be, it must be the least in the world, and it should be 3% of GDP, which the parliamentary committee on
That's
defense
right, but Colonel Vasudev, don't you think at this point of time the Finance Minister is actually bucking the trend, the worldwide trend of cutting down on defense expenditure?
When you compare the threat perception, then the Finance Minister, I think, is not aware what the threat perception in the country is. If this trend continues, the Ladakh region and Arunachal, which is China is threatening, Gwadar it has already taken seaside, and all the neighboring states, countries like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Nepal and they have got into sight, and we are not even friendly to our
I
own
get your point,
countries.
though I'm not sure if a lot of other people, non-military men, would agree with your very sweeping kind of statements. Let me get General Virk into the discussion. Contrary to what Colonel Vasudev is saying, the Defence Minister, he himself has admitted that though there is, he's not got as much as he asked for, but he's quite satisfied with what he's got, and there will be no cut in the priority areas.
First, buying this argument, there will be no further cuts. Also, I think it appears at this stage as out of realm of reality.
Okay.
We've been seeing a continuous trend, in fact, over the year that where government had promised at the time of the budgeting that there will be no further cut, but it has always been there that the cuts have been there. Secondly, I agree with Colonel Vasudeva, like our planner are not in tune with the reality of as far as the strategic concerns of India are. If we have our interest in South China Sea, if we have interest in basic marine ocean lines and that kind of thing, then going by this kind of budget, I think we are grossly inadequate to equip ourselves.
Right. Veeresh Sharma, what is your view? First, the general reaction to the 14% hike over the revised estimates.
See, I would comment on it in two different ways.
Okay.
One, if it's a national compulsion to reduce the allocation to the defense services, then the so-called leaders and decision makers should know best, and I guess they've done so in their wisdom, and therefore we need to be ready to tighten our belts. They have allocated quantum increase for internal security. I believe the increase for modernization of police forces is something from 300 billion to 18 billion.
So, almost a 6-time increase.
Yes.
So, all that goes to the Home Ministry.
It goes to the Home Ministry, whereas the Defence Minister is crying, I will try and get 40,000 more and this, that and the other. Well, it doesn't serve any purpose. At the same time, going by what my colleagues have stated, if we are looking at a multiple threat, even if we are not looking at a multiple threat, if we are just looking at the Chinese side, every now and then we say they've built up their infrastructure, they've done this, they've done that. The Chinese have a treaty with us which says treaty of peace and tranquility along the borders. But then it's a smart nation, because the Pakistanis don't have such a treaty with us, and the Chinese get the Pakistani to serve their interests by keeping us bleeding along the western border.
Right.
And also trading off our land in the northern areas for which we are crying hoarse.
Right. Now, since you talked about China, we've been thinking of or we're in the process of raising a new mountain strike corps. Will those war plans get affected with this kind of meager budgetary allocation?
I guess that raising would, out of compulsion, have to be undertaken if the army feels it to be necessary, and therefore it will have an impact on some of the other bigger plans. Your infantry soldier 2020 may not come up. Other sectors may be deprioritized for allocation of finances. So that rejig would have to be done. But I'd like to close my comments by saying that the army for long has been giving out a perspective plan, a short term and a long term plan. If you look at the homeland security, the police forces, the only police force to have made a perspective plan has been that of Gujarat.
Okay.
None of the other state forces have made that. So, if we are projecting well in advance our requirements for the next 10, 20 years, 25 years, the Finance Ministry and the MOD should be in sync with this to support these plans.
Okay.
Or they should be pundits of
So, what you are suggesting is that the Finance Ministry and the Defence Ministry are not in sync.
Well, apparently somewhere there is a dichotomy.
Okay.
Somewhere there is a dichotomy. And all this I also feel is because of a bigger ailment. You have no
what is the bigger ailment?
You have no defense person anywhere in those places where they should be saying something and they should be heard.
Right, a very valid point. Before I get Professor Sharma into the discussion, Colonel Vasudev, a quick comment from you. To what extent will the shortage of funds affect the acquisitions like the pieces of artillery, air defense and even ammunition?
I'll quickly brief you. Firstly, your point regarding the raising of the corps with two mountain divisions, that is a high altitude corps, which was earmarked 60,000 crore rupees. It was scaled down to 20,000 crore.
Right.
As far as my news goes, the Ministry of Finance has asked the Ministry of Defence to curtail it for some time more.
Okay.
Similarly, 126 Rafale medium multi-jet planes from France.
Right.
They are about $20 billion. They are also going to be stopped for a time being, and not
or maybe
all
the acquisition would be staggered.
staggered. Not only staggered, they have told him to hold on this year for some time.
Okay.
Until we are able to give you some
What
amount.
about the pieces of artillery and other army equipment?
There is already shortage and the contracts are already there, and I have got the figures whereby they need $20 billion for multi-role combat aircraft, $4.1 billion they require for 106-17 transport aircraft, $2.4 billion for upgradation of MiG-29.
Well, I'll just come back to you, Professor Sharma. There's a whole list of equipment that.
Since we are at the point of acquisition equipment for, let's say, a strike corps,
Right.
I would like to say here that in last 40 years we have not got a gun after the Bofors came. In fact, all along I have never seen even the SP gun in this Indian army. We've been talking of striking 100 kilometers.
I think there was enough controversy over the Bofors to venture for another guns like that.
But that doesn't constrain us from producing of our own. And now Defence Minister comes to say that there will be no import. And to build up such kind of infrastructure where we can produce an artillery gun, it requires years.
Right. Since we have to go into a break, I'll just come back to you. Professor Sharma, quickly, as a former member of the National Security Advisory Board, and you also heard the three military officers, what is your perspective, since you also will look at the other requirements in other sectors?
I think number one is that nowhere in the world the defense people feel that justice has been done to them.
Okay.
And same is true in India. Now, there are 2-3 things to look at it. Number one is that what is the total percentage of the budget, of total budget which goes to the defense. Now, the figures which are being given here, they are only for the defense ministries. But if you look at the holistic view of the defense, it is not only the defense ministry, it is the home ministry, internal security 50,000 crores, it is Atomic Energy Commission,
okay.
it is also ISRO, it is also the Department of Science and Technology, it is also the CSIR.
Okay.
If you add all these things, I think the allocation for the defense will be higher than any other segment.
So, this 1.79 of the GDP is actually a misnomer.
It is a misnomer. It's a misnomer. Nobody talks about them. Now, without ISRO, can we go forward? What is the amount of the money which is spent?
Okay.
Now, question is that we have education, we have health, we have agriculture, which are our major concerns. And number two is that the threat perspective. We say that China and Pakistan, we don't know, we don't look into consideration what China is involved in the South and the East China Sea. And we always compare ourselves with China. If China is comparing with USA, they are spending 6 times less money on defense than USA is. How can we say that we should have the same equation?
So, do you think the money which has been given will squarely address our security concerns?
No, I am asking one question. Have the money given last year has been fully spent?
Of course not, because you have the other hitches. When the equipment is not bought, then how can you spend this money? There are other concerns also. By just saying that this kind of things are available, it's a misnomer being created not only in this forum, but all over our country. I'm sorry to say this kind of thinking will lead us back to prior to 62 war. Anybody who have visited China border, let's say in Arunachal Pradesh, will vouch for this fact.
Well, let me come back to the basic question again.
No, I am saying
the kind of money allocation for defense that has been given, does this address our security concerns?
No, question is that 58.8% is on the revenue expenditure, and we are talking about that these guns or that guns. So, what we have to do is that we have to see whether our fighting force, individual soldier, how much we require, whether we require his upgradation, because the future is of the information technology, army personnel as a unit in itself. So that is where we have to go. We are only talking about heavy equipment, etc. If you look back at what has happened, you see in the defense, it is more because of our less vigilance than another country coming and attacking us.
Girish Sharma, since the capital expenditure accounts for the aircraft purchases of the Indian Air Force, so I think the Indian Air Force at least has a reason to be happy, no?
Well, there's been no adverse comment from any Air Force officer, either in the media or individually. And in fact, I interacted with a couple of them just yesterday, and they had nothing much to say. So apparently, you know, on the face of it, they
would be happy. General Virk, Professor Sharma raised a very pertinent point. The revenue expenditure, which takes care of our salaries and the pension, is far more than the capital expenditure, which takes care of the equipment purchases. Now, don't you think there is something seriously wrong? We are adding to our flab rather than add to our punch.
What has happened, in fact, right from the beginning, this fallacy has always been created that we are allocating so much of budget to the armed forces, whereas most of it is taken care of only just by serving either the pay or the pension, including the DRD also. And
but don't you think we need to address that?
We need to address that. In fact, there has been an advocation earlier also saying that these two should be bifurcated. Whatever we have to spend, let's say, on capital asset building, that should be separate as compared to the service aspect. But it has never been heard, and we create a bogey of, let's say, even in the world body also, when we say India is spending so much of budget on its defense, even the service, which is not included by other countries, it comes out in that. Now, Professor Sharma has gone a step ahead and telling us even ISRO budget should also be included in the defense. That will create a lot of hocus in fact, in the entire service sector. So there should be a separate allotment of fund for capital assets, especially the weapon equipment and maintenance of that. And if we have that adequate equipment with us, the incidents of 62 and the incident of other, let's say, where somebody has pointed out that people are coming to our country and we didn't know about it, all those can be addressed very safely. This is basically, we are in the third wave, as Toffler has brought out, that knowledge base. Okay. Knowledge base cannot work at its own unless it's supported by smart equipment. And the smart equipment is required to be purchased. We have got no choice to running away from it.
Right. Professor Sharma, now if you were to compare the three services, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, do you think we're giving enough to the Navy and the Air Force to upgrade?
I think Navy requires much more.
Even more?
Even more, because that's where the major future, you could say, threat is going to come from.
Okay.
And Air Force equally, because no fight can be won without the Air Force. And if you look at the last wars, it is basically the Air Force, whether you take care of Libya, whether you take care of Gulf War, etc., Air Force has to be there.
Right. Girish Sharma, I think you want to say something?
Yeah, I have actually 2-3 small little inputs to give you. One, we must have a national goal. Whether it's an economic goal or whatever, we must have a national goal. Where are we going to be in the next, say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Now, if it is going to be economic, and today all interests are economic. In fact, they've been there through the ages, whether it is water, whether it's sea lanes, whether it's oil, energy, whatever it is. You also therefore need to ensure that your interests are secure. And therefore, the security apparatus needs to be built in to ensure that whatever progress and wherever your interests lie, they are properly secured. Therefore, Navy and Air Force and a segment of the Army which needs to operate with them in joint operations out of area, whether it's island territories or it's wherever offshore, they need to be brought up in that manner. Secondly, just to comment on the past observations and suggestions by Professor Sharma, suggesting that we've given so much of money and it's a hell of a lot and things like that, then it reminds me of General Malik's statement post Kargil, where he said we will fight with what we've been given. So if you feel that there is no threat.
No, he did say that, but one is not sure if in the months preceding that, if he had taken up the case forcefully enough.
I won't comment on that, but the fact is that somewhere down the line he realized that people had one arm tied behind their back.
Sharma, you wanted to
yes.
cut in?
You see, we have to look at the budget holistically. Reason is that this has been the worst period in last 5 years as far as the economy is concerned, not only of this country, but of the world.
Right.
The money comes from the growth, our growth is 5%. I think we must commend the finance minister now that he is looking at the long term perspective, that the moment we grow at 8% or 9%, there will be enough money in the kitty, even with 1.7%
to be given to various sectors.
To the various.
Right.
I think this is where we shouldn't criticize the finance minister. He is looking at a much bigger picture which will be good for this country.
Unfortunately, the wars do not come after making announcements, right? That fact must be kept in mind while you are doing a national plan.
Absolutely. Colonel Vasudev, the allocation for defense research has remained about the same. Is that adequate?
Not at all. On one side, our defense minister, Mr. Antony, talks that we have to do indigenization. The scams which are going on, it is because there is no research and development going on in the DRDOs, and unless the adequate money is given to them.
There are two sides to it. Brigadier Sharma, you might like to comment on this. Instead of giving more money to the DRDO, don't you think we need to streamline the DRDO functioning? That's what even General Virk indicated.
In fact, it is something which must be done. It has to be done, and the DRDO and the defense or the ordnance factories, majority of them, if you read through their performance analysis and things like that, they've been non-runners. Yes, in certain areas like HAL
So if
and others,
non-runners, then why give them more money? It will be a waste.
yeah, that is it.
Not to them.
So don't you think, General Virk, in that case, we should involve the private sector more?
Private
I was
sector
coming to
must
that.
be
I was
involved.
coming to that. Firstly, I am in fact strangely watching in India, we have a different rule policy. You know, the moment we find something going wrong, we instead of curing that wrong, we say, okay, kill the person.
Okay.
But that's what has happened. That okay, in import route we find there are a lot of lacunas, there are a lot of problems. Rather than blocking the lacuna, we say no, everything will be Indianized. It is built. How can we build without even an infrastructure, a base? We do not have an infrastructure. We do not have, in fact, a technical know-how to build up certain kind of equipment. We may try whatsoever we want to try. We will not be able to build up. So in those areas, we must have at least import policy still open. But there should be check and balances.
No.
We can't say that, okay, today there are some cases happened, okay, there were because of the black film was in the car, so ban it.
Right. Professor Sharma, would you like to comment on whether the defense establishment has been making efforts to involve the private sector?
At present, only 20% is our indigenous, 80% is being imported. Now, without private participation, if you look at USA, you look anywhere, it is the private sector to which the government gives the contract. I think the first thing which this country should do is that open up the defense for the private, even and have a collaboration. BrahMos is the example that the first supersonic, you see, armament which we have got is with the collaboration with the Soviet Union. It was with that when it broke up. So we should ensure that the private sector gets the major input.
Right. Brigadier Sharma, since we are running out of time, what is your opinion on, are we preparing ourselves for a future war, a modern war, and what else needs to be done?
No, my first observation or comment is that no, we are not really preparing ourselves for any kind of a modern war or a future war. Although there is a lot of thinking and there is a lot of talk about it, but on ground, no, I don't think we've made any headway at all.
Right. General Virk, are we preparing for a net-centric war? Is our common infantry soldier, is he prepared for a high-tech modern war? Or because many people feel that he's still, the same old soldier ready for hand-to-hand combat and for a conventional war.
I made a comment earlier also, yes, as far as presentations are concerned, as far as reading is concerned, definitely we are making a lot of hue and noise about it. But as far as its support is concerned, because every information warfare has to be supported by equally smart weaponry, that element is just missing. And as far as training is concerned, you can't train a soldier unless you have equipment to train it on. And that in fact sums it up. I'll just like to make a comment on another aspect also. We have got leadership in vehicle manufacturing. The Tatas have a big base for that. Solid. But we still kept on buying or borrowing that BML vehicle coming via the route of Czechoslovakia, then going to England. And
so you mean maybe we should be exporting
absolutely.
Why
not? We should have exported similar kind of
Right,
vehicles.
since you're running out of time, Colonel Vasudeva, the last comment from you. What else needs to be done to modernize our warfare capability?
Firstly, the manpower. They have to be trained, and you must privatize all the DRDO. Public sector companies already we are going for disinvestment for them. And here is a DRDO is one organization, so are the factories.
But are we doing enough for, let's say, the future of warfare, war in space, or for putting gadgetry in space for warfare on land and in the sea?
This naval GS-80, the satellite which is being launched, they will be able to connect with all the ships better.
But have we provided enough money for that?
Presently, it has got to be step by step. The complete amount is not available to the Navy. Also, it may take 5 years for them to come up to that level.
Right, quickly.
Just a quick input.
Yeah.
You know, with all this futuristic propagation, knowledge warfare, this, that, and the other, I invariably fall back to the fact that if you're going to pay a fellow 6,000 rupees, he's not going to come. Good quality human resources are not going to come to you. So how do you train and fit high level gadgetry and technology with an ill-equipped human being? So you are in future.
But then we come back to the same point, whether we need more money for capital expenditure or for revenue expenditure.
So yeah, but in future you will have to raise the bar of remuneration for the human resources who are going to man your battle stations.
Yeah, anything?
I think the future wars are going to be different.
Okay.
With one, do you see the new happens is your whole, you could say, electricity system could be knocked out with the carbon UC bomb. It will be IT which will be producing your cyber war, and it will be electromagnetic. I think we are not, we have to look at this kind of war which we are thinking about. The money is going to be in
so there is need for a completely new type of thinking.
New, exactly.
Right.
We are in a
Thank you very much for joining us in the discussion. Defense analysts view the reduction in defense expenditure from last year's 1.9% to 1.79% of the projected GDP. Some even feel that India should spend as much as 3% of the GDP on defense. But what is important is not the amount or the percentage GDP, but that the defense allocation fully addresses the security concerns of the nation. That is all in Defense Line today. Do write your feedback. Good luck and goodbye.
खबरों की दुनिया में आइए, हमारे साथ कहीं भी और कभी भी जुड़िए। हम मिलेंगे फेसबुक पर, हम दिखेंगे यूट्यूब पर, हमें फॉलो कीजिए ट्विटर पर। खबरों के साथ बने रहिए रात दिन।